Hey everyone, I'm Steph from cheapskatecook.com and welcome to my kitchen. I'm so excited to bring my dear friend Jessie Fabling for the third time because we have been talking about Jessie's incredible journey the last few years. If you don't know her story, she was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and she has just been a light and an encouragement, and she's just attacking it full on. And she is using lots of different ways to kind of support her whole body in this process. But for today, we're going to talk about the budget, because this is a very real thing, and it's a big part of your healing journey because it's a struggle. You're trying to afford the best that you can, and you're trying to do the best thing for your body, but there's also a very practical aspect in how do you afford all of that. So Jessie has agreed to be very transparent and let us know how it looks in her story, and I'm so excited, and I know that you will be blessed by this interview. So thank you so much for joining me, Jessie.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I have a question. When we first talked about doing this series of interviews and some of the most important things in your journey, it became very clear that some of your resources and your community have been a huge part of your story. I'd love to hear more about that because, like you said, you work two jobs, but you're not a millionaire, and you are trying to eat all organic, and you have lots of therapies that everything costs money. And so I'd love to hear you share a little more about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, yes, I'm a waitress and I'm a nanny. There are three organizations that support financially, and then I have other organizations and things that I've learned along the way. So starting from the beginning, there was an organization called Every Woman's Life that reached out to me, and I guess they got my socioeconomic status, and they said, hey, we want to support you as you're going through this. And they were a bridge in the gap between when I started the process of being diagnosed to when I was diagnosed and I started then the healing journey. Every Woman's Life was so great. Like, they reached out to me, they found me, and I'm very grateful. So they supported me through getting the diagnosing. Like, for me, it was mammogram, biopsy. So they took care of that. And then once I had the diagnosis, I am a part of a medical bill sharing community called Ministries. And I'm very grateful to be working with them. I had not, this was the first need that I had submitted with the organization. So it was quite the learning curve. But what happened for me is I kind of debated between getting regular insurance, which I've had in the past, or doing the medical bill sharing community. And earlier, starting that year, like, I guess I don't remember the launch date, but it was, the very, very beginning of 2017, I started with Samaritan Ministries. And that was what felt right with me. And I thought that's the one that I want to get, because I had been living overseas for a time. And so I was like in between. So when I came back and to get that instated, I'm so grateful, because I could not have foreseen or known what was to come and what choices I had, and what my end decision to go holistic in my treatment. Standard insurance doesn't cover that. And so I couldn't have foreseen that was exactly what I needed. And so this is just one example. I have a need, and then the provision, and then there's the overlap. Like, it's right there. I didn't ever feel like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this? It was immediate gratitude of, oh wow, this is already in place, and oh my gosh, I'm so grateful.
So Samaritan Ministries actually covers some of your expenses.
So when I go to the clinic and I have the big medical bill for all of these treatments, mm-hmm. They cover within their parameters, mm-hmm. many of my supplemental therapies and treatment. So, if a supplement the doctor recommends and I can write it on the sheet and send it in, that they will cover it. If it's recommended that I get acupuncture, or if I go to the chiropractor, there's a certain number that they'll cover. I've been so blessed by them. I could stand here and tell you how amazing they are. Like, things that were unexpected. For example, that bill from the second day. So I went the first day meeting with a surgeon, and then the second day I went to meet with a fertility specialist. And that bill was hefty, and it doesn't meet the Samaritan Ministry parameters of what they would normally cover. But they have within the organization just kind of they have provision for special situations. And things like that, where even I didn't expect them to cover, they were able to do it just because the ministry and people donate to the ministry. They're so generous. And I've had my socks blessed off by them. They're just tremendous. And things that don't normally fall within the parameters, I can submit as a special prayer need. So like things that came up, amalgam fillings, they contribute to dis-ease in the body, as we are now learning, and as I have learned in this journey. I had one, and to have that removed, they don't cover dental, but the bills, I could submit them as a special prayer need. And if people felt so led, what you get is you get like a main need that you submit as a check that you send, like as being a part of the organization. But then also there's just a small monetary donation that if everybody kind of gave this much, then it would cover that need. And I've been so blessed. It's amazing. And people write notes of encouragement. So they're great. So Samaritan Ministries, Every Woman's Life. And then at that same time that I was diagnosed, I also had the opportunity to apply for Medicaid. All of this, like all the things that I'm saying, this whole journey and process would not have been possible for me to have the head space, the heart space, the physical ability to do all these things unless I had community. I had people sitting with me and like on speakerphone with me as I'm working these things out, answering questions, because I just received a heavy diagnosis. So it's like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But sitting with me and filling out Medicaid applications and getting all the paperwork together for that. And when I was diagnosed, I also got very brave, and I started a GoFundMe because I knew that this was bigger than what I could do by myself. And that's hard to admit. I think all of us can say we've been in that place before. And going public with such a private thing was very hard for me. But again, community, I had people around me who were helping me to go through that process and to share my story, so that, and that was what you were saying, like how can people help you? Well, you have to tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
To give opportunity for them to be able to help you. And I remember the night I hit the button and I was like, well, there it goes, my life out in the open. It was hard, but people blessed my socks off. Oh my goodness. Just amazing, amazing response of just loved ones that came around me and supported me through a very hard time. I could hear it in my own voice. Like, I'm so, so grateful. And I had just come back from living overseas, so I wasn't like fully established. So I was living with family at the time. I had one job at the time, but I was like slowly kind of getting reestablished. I moved into a house. I didn't have a thing. Like I did, but I didn't have pots or pans. I mean, that's the best way to start a new life, right? At ground zero. Because I got the right pans that I needed for my situation. Because there's stuff that you learn of stuff in pans that if it comes off the pan, it gets into your food and you eat it, that your body has to process it out. And if it's already working on something else, that's too much. So I got like cast iron and stainless pans and all of, I'm talking to you, we grew up together, so I know you know what I'm talking about, but I didn't have those things, and people came along and helped me. And there were certain therapies that I needed, like really odd things. Like I need kefir, and I mean, just coffee for enemas, and I need a pot that is like this, and I need like I had to acquire them, and people, they were on the ready, and some had walked with somebody else in a similar situation, so they understood, and they said, hey, I have this, would you like it? Yes, thank you very much. I would love it. A lot of my treatment equipment was donated to me, which is an amazing, tremendous blessing. I mean, as if this person is watching, you know who you are, and I'm so grateful. Stuff like that. The community is just huge in being that massive support. I had people come in and help me with paperwork, because with Samaritan Ministries, you have to like put all of the paperwork and submit it, and that's a big chore. Medical, like bills, accounting. I just said, hey, new need. I have this, and I need to try and organize this, and I need somebody who's, and that person, and it was the perfect person. And when you're not thinking straight, you're not thinking, I need to ask that person because they're the perfect person. That person who is the perfect person responded, and you know who you are, and comes and helps me with that need and provision. I had, someone donate a refrigerator to me, because with juicing and produce and just all the things needed to reestablish with, it was very heavy on the juicing in the beginning. And my story, I can just share a part of it, is that when I was diagnosed, the tumor was 8 centimeters. And then it had 2 sources of blood flow. And I went for a checkup in November, and the blood flow had diminished significantly from the first appointment, and it didn't measure growth at that time. And then when I went in February, I had an MRI before I left, and it was 10 centimeters. And so I had like this feeling of fear, as we do, of, what is this? But often, just say, what was my experience and what many is when you're treating it alternatively, sometimes it like will have a reaction before it changes. So I had some adverse symptoms that in my mind I had to take captive and make obedient to the process and the journey of, like, whether it was pain or discomfort. And now I've learned to associate pain and discomfort sometimes with positive thing, because when I went back in February and we looked over the results, the blood flow had stopped, and it hasn't grown since. And that was February of 18, and this is October of 19. And I just got my MRI results actually in today from my last MRI. That was at the end of September. And again, stable, no growth, no change. So what I'm doing is working, and I'm doing a lot, and it is very hard work, but it is so rewarding, and I'm so blessed by the journey. When you hit ground zero of life, and I know you've been through hard things too, you probably can speak to this. When you hit a wall or a ground zero in life, and then as we know from the Bible and from our own experience, there can be beautiful things that come from terrible experiences. And that is my story.
That's amazing. I love your story, and it's been such a painful but very touching and God glorifying experience watching you go through that, because of the way that you've handled it and the way that your community has so obviously circled around you. Some of the main ministries were Every Woman's Life, Samaritan Ministries, and what were the other 2?
Medicaid.
Wonderful.
GoFundMe.
Yes.
It's a supporting organization in that they offer the platform, but really that's hugely community. It's the donations of people that, like, for example, my babysitter from when I was 6 months old, like, showed up on there, and just, wow. You know what I'm saying? Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I think you said it really well, is that people don't know unless you ask.
Yes.
And GoFundMe provided a really great platform for you to be able to ask. I think that's beautiful, and I'm really grateful for that, I guess it's not technically a ministry, but I'm really grateful for that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And that you were brave enough to ask, because
It's hard.
right, right. It's hard, it's scary, and I even remember when you shared it, then you even apologized. Like I apologize that this is the very first that you're hearing that I have cancer, but this. And part of me is like, well, girl, you don't need to apologize. Like, you got a lot on your plate right now. If you didn't text me individually, like, should not apologize. But there was
Because
that.
I have a lot of family, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yes, you have a lot of family and friends, and it was heavy stuff that you're sharing. But you were brave. You were very gracious about it, and conscious of other people's feelings, but also like, this is what it is. This is where I am, and this is what I need. And it was very authentic. And I think it speaks a lot to the kind of person you are. You know, none of us wants to plan to have to go through something like this. But the fact that you are who you are, and you love the way that you love, and you serve the way that you serve, then people saw that and they were like, yep, like, I am there. I want to help. I want to do something. And I know that there were many, many people who, even if they weren't able to donate financially, because you have shared your story so beautifully, then it's just a constant reminder that you're in lots of people's prayers.
Oh, absolutely. Prayers are huge. Prayers are huge. Did I emphasize that enough? I feel them. I know that people's prayers are with me, and I am so grateful.
What would you say to a person who has just been diagnosed and or is kind of in the midst, and they're just overwhelmed with this process? You've already shared some really great ministries, but if you could just take a minute and speak directly to them, what would you
yeah. Yes. Okay. First, the overwhelm is normal. It is okay. And we've said it in the other video, but like, there are options financially as well as treatment options.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of options, which is a beautiful thing. And to share a little bit about the disease that I have learned along the way is that it is adaptive. And so it's actually helpful that if you're doing something and it stops working for whatever reason, if it was working or if it doesn't work for you, there are a lot of options. So it may seem daunting of, where do I even begin? In my experience, God knows, and he loves you, and he's providing for you, and what you need is there. I couldn't have prepared so perfectly for my story and how it unfolded. Mm-hmm. Like, so there's no, you can't be prepared. You can be knowledgeable. And some people that I've met along the journey, they have said, oh, I watched, some documentary, and I knew that if ever I was diagnosed, then I knew how I was going to treat it. And I'm doing the same way. I would want to do it the same way you're doing it. And so I support you. And some people, they're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? And just be prepared for kind of both sides. And people who support and understand, and some people who don't understand and are still supportive, or who can't really be supportive because they don't understand why and what choices you're making. It's, you're making the choice, you're living with the choice that you make, and it feels like this is a huge choice. You don't have to make it by yourself. Mm-hmm. People know where you are, what you're going through. There are people who are going through the same types of things. That was my story. And so this is what I hope to do in sharing this. And I'm getting like choked up thinking about it, is I'm sharing my story.
And it sounds like you would like to tell people who are in that diagnosis that you have a voice, you have a choice, and it's scary and it's overwhelming. And quite often, especially when you have professionals who are giving their opinions, from holistic standpoints and standard Western medicine standpoints, everyone is very knowledgeable and very capable in their fields, and it can make you feel very inadequate and very like, who am I? How am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do? But I think what you have shared over and over and so well is that it's your decision, and you get to decide. You can research, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah. and you're not alone. That was a big thing there's a song by Carrie Job. I have gone over it and over it when I'm going to the treatment center or doing something hard. Do you know the song, I am not alone, I am not alone, you have come before me, you will never leave me. That's that message, whether it's having somebody physically with you or just knowing like the presence of God is with you, that you're not alone. That is so comforting because you're doing hard stuff.
So I know we've talked a lot in the other interviews about how someone who has a loved one who is going through this, how they can show up for them and how they can support them in different aspects. And we've talked about like your GoFundMe page and that platform specifically. It sounds like Samaritan Ministries has also been a great community in that people can write notes of encouragement, and they've opted to support some of your expenses. What are some other ways that someone can be community for their loved one?
Yes, thank you for asking. Okay, so, and actually, I want you to share what you shared with me first. Can you share with me about support? Because that, I talked to somebody about that today. That made so much sense to me. Oh my gosh. Will you share that?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of years ago, my family went through a really difficult time because my husband was hit by a truck. And while we were going through this very stressful time with surgeries and therapies and all of that, someone close to us shared a kind of circle, I forget what it's called, circle of support or circles of stress, where the person that the traumatic event, whether that's a medical diagnosis or just something traumatic and difficult is happening to, is at the center. If you picture it, it's like throwing a rock into a stream. So you've got the person at the center and then rings extending out from that person. And the very inner ring is like the spouse or the primary caregiver or the parent or whoever is like most closely walking with them in this journey. And then outside that would be maybe siblings, very close friends, maybe parents are on this ring, you know, people that you're going to keep updated and they're very involved in the process, but, you know, they're not the primary caregiver. And then after that ring, then there's like friends and family who are in their community, and then there's like the Facebook ring and that kind of thing. And the way that people need to conduct themselves is that support and encouragement goes inward into the circle and stress goes outward into the circle. So for example, I actually experienced this where when we were at the hospital that very first night, and it was after surgeries, and it was so much stress, I started crying. You know, it was my husband and I were finally alone, and I just broke down because it was all of the stress and all of the, and I'm like, I'm so glad you're okay, because Chris is my person that I usually go to for comfort. But the problem is he was in the center and he did not need to carry my stress in that moment. He has his own stress that was more than enough for him. And so what I learned is that I needed to take my stress and I needed to share that with other people who were close to me, who I could be like, this is so hard, this is so difficult. But I didn't need to tell my husband that this is so hard, this is so difficult, because, I mean, his human reaction is, you think? Try having this happen to you. Oh, just totally legitimate. But I needed to pour all of the encouragement towards the center, into him. And the same is true for like our parents, you know, like this was difficult for our parents. You know, first of all, we've got my parents, you know, both of them are involved with, you know, like their babies are going through really difficult times, but they needed to take all of their stress and put that out and, you know, take all of the support and encouragement and love and pour that into the circle. So
yes,
just a good guideline for us to figure out where to put all of the strong emotions when we do this.
When you shared that with me yesterday, I've held on to it because that makes so much sense and it gives words to my experience, because I was trying to like organize it, but that is just the perfect organizational system and I love it. So thank you for sharing.
Good. Hopefully it helps.
Yeah. In my experience, I had that close friends and family right there with me who like lived in the state and I lived in their house or they lived around the corner who could come be present with me. And that was so encouraging. And then it was, okay, now what? Almost the reverse of like a wedding engagement of who do I need to tell? Who needs to know this? Who, because I love and care about my people and I don't want them to find out, you know, in a backhanded way, like just, but I can't emotionally engage with everyone right now. Right. So that's where
you have to carry that either. You're carrying a lot.
Yeah. Like, yes. So I had people like who created, like there was a family text that I was not in. Mm-hmm. That is okay. Where they could air out their questions of what is happening. Mm-hmm. What is, I wasn't in it, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And that's good.
Yeah.
We had email updates that I sent.
Okay, yeah. I got them.
Chris was not a part of any of those updates. He's still not a part of them.
Yes.
So he didn't need to hear all the nitty gritty, and I would just forward him encouraging emails that we got back.
That's so awesome.
But I would take out what I had written, because what you're holding is too heavy. It's so heavy, and you don't need to carry anymore.
Yes. I have friends and family who still support me financially, who still have given me like, hey, we had a lot of peppers this week. Would you like some? And that's what you would usually kind of expect and feel. I grew up in the country and that happens anyways, but they're like, specific to my need and they're organic and, just there's an extra dose of love in them. And I'm really grateful. Groceries, like a card to go get groceries. Mm-hmm. We swap recipes, like people who are in the circle that some of my friends completely changed their eating habits and they're like, hey, we just found, this recipe and we're making it tonight. You want to come have dinner with us? That doesn't happen a lot, but I'm so grateful. And it doesn't have to happen a lot because it makes that so much more meaningful. It's right. My expectation isn't, all right, everyone get on board here. It's just those so when you check in and you're honest with yourself, as I am doing, of what I can do and what I need to ask for, and then that same thing is happening on the reciprocal side of what can I do? And then with that honesty where you meet each other, that's beauty. It works so well. I've had when I was first diagnosed, and you can probably imagine this, not that I was ever overweight, but I was definitely heavier than I was after I was juicing for 3 months. Right. All of a sudden, I was literally walking out the door to go to work and my pants fell down. Houston, we have a problem. So I needed new clothes and they were donated. People went through their clothes and they said, hey, I'm a size this and here's this. Or I had, somebody be like, I'm at the store and these are really cute shorts. You want a pair? Some of my friends, I can call, and that is huge. Some of my friends, they'll come and sit with me, but it's not going to be every friend that is able to do that or that I want to have right there at ground zero with me. It's, and there's a level of respect and understanding of, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. Sending me a message or an emoji or, whatever it is that is so wonderful and beautiful. And then, as then I feel able, I can reach out and see where I am. And I think apart from a diagnosis, that's life and that's beauty and that's community and that's serving each other. And, whether somebody's getting married and we're all doing this together or having a baby and we're all doing this together or is diagnosed with something hard and we're all doing this together, it may, have a different buzz about it. The emotions may be different, but the beauty is still there.
Yeah, it is community and it's a huge, huge gift.
Yeah.
Well, Jessie, thank you so much for this series of interviews. It's been really real. It's been beautiful. It's been hard. And I've loved the energy that you brought, and I love the authenticity and the resources that you're sharing. I mean, you really This is amazing, and I just pray that the people who need to see this will see this, and that it will bless them, and that it will give them hope and a future, like you said in the very first interview. So thank you so much, and let's see, for all of you guys who are watching, if you have any questions specifically for Jessie, feel free to comment below, and I will make sure that she gets them. As always, just let us know if you have any thoughts about this, and I will talk to you guys again later.